The silent bond. Sometimes someone lives in your mind without saying a single word. You wake up and they're the first thought that crosses your mind. You go through your day and somehow they appear between your breaths. You don't talk, you don't text, you don't meet. But they stay, quietly, softly, somewhere between your heartbeats. Psychology calls it emotional imprinting, but your heart calls it connection. When someone is always in your mind without communication, it means your emotions have created a deep neural memory of them. You're not obsessed. You're attached at an emotional frequency. They have touched a part of your being that logic can't explain. 1. Emotional residue. They left a mark inside you. When someone stays in your mind, it means they left behind an emotional fingerprint. Every memory, every laugh, every small gesture, they've all built tiny imprints in your subconscious. Psychology says our brain stores emotional memories more vividly than factual ones. That's why even without communication, you still feel their presence like a soft echo in your mind. They once made you feel seen, and now your mind replays that warmth again and again. You're not thinking about them because you want to. You're thinking about them because your mind associates them with comfort, with connection, with the feeling of being alive. 2. You experienced emotional synchrony. There are moments in love when two people's emotions sync, like waves touching the shore at the same rhythm. Psychology calls this emotional synchrony. It happens when two people share intense emotions or experiences together. Your body remembers it. Your nervous system remembers the calm you felt when they were around. So even when communication ends, your brain keeps sending gentle reminders of that emotional synchrony, as if it's trying to recreate that peace. You're not crazy. You're connected through memory chemistry. 3. Your mind connects them to safety. We don't miss random people. We miss the ones who made us feel safe. When someone stays in your mind, it's often because your subconscious mind associates them with emotional safety. Their voice, their presence, or even their silence once gave you comfort. That's why, even after distance, your mind replays them. Not because you're stuck in the past, but because you're longing for that same emotional security again. You don't miss the person. You miss the feeling you had when they were around. 4. The dopamine effect of emotional highs. Falling for someone releases dopamine, the feel-good chemical that your brain craves again and again. That's why, when you think of them, your brain rewards you with a tiny rush of warmth or nostalgia. It's not just love, it's chemistry replaying memories. Even if months have passed, your mind holds on to that dopamine pattern, releasing small bursts every time their name crosses your thoughts. That's why it's so hard to let go. Your brain doesn't just remember, it feels them. 5. Unfinished emotional cycles. Sometimes someone stays in your mind because the story between you two didn't reach its ending. There were words left unsaid, feelings unexpressed, goodbyes that never happened. Psychology calls this Zeigarnik effect. Our minds remember incomplete experiences more than finished ones. That's why when there's no closure, your mind keeps going back to that person again and again, hoping to complete the emotional circle that was left open. You keep replaying what if, because your heart is still searching for peace. 6. Your mind mirrors. What it misses when you think about someone constantly, you start to imagine what they might be doing, how they might be feeling, whether they think of you too. That's your brain's mirror neuron system at work. The same system that allows humans to feel empathy. It activates when we emotionally bond with someone deeply. Even in silence, your mind mirrors the emotional rhythm it once shared with them. That's why you feel their energy, their moods, their presence, even from miles away. It's not fantasy. It's how emotional attachment shapes human consciousness. 7. The power of emotional habit. Love can become a habit, not in a boring way, but in the way your mind learns to rely on someone emotionally. When you've spent months or years connecting with someone, their presence becomes a psychological anchor. Even when they're gone, your mind still runs the same emotional routine, thinking about them at the same time, imagining their reactions, replaying your shared laughter. It's like muscle memory, only this time it's heart memory. And that's why even silence feels full, because your emotions still follow the path they once walked together. 8. You built an emotional home in them. Sometimes a person becomes your home, not a physical place, but a space where your heart felt understood. When you think of them constantly, it's because your mind once found belonging in their energy. Even after communication ends, your thoughts wander back there, because that person was once your safe space in a chaotic world. In love psychology, this is known as emotional dependency. Not in a negative way, but in a very human way. You don't crave them because you're weak. You crave them because your emotions learned how to breathe around them. 9. The mind's tendency to fill silence with meaning. When someone goes silent, our minds don't accept emptiness. They start to create stories. You imagine why they stopped talking, what they must be feeling, whether they still care. This is your brain's attempt to make sense of emotional uncertainty, because uncertainty is painful, and the mind will always choose imagination over emptiness. That's why they stay in your thoughts. Not just because you miss them, but because your heart refuses to accept nothingness. 10. Your subconscious is trying to heal. When someone stays in your mind for a long time, it may be your subconscious trying to heal unfinished emotions. It keeps bringing them up so that one day you can face the feelings you buried. Maybe it's forgiveness you never gave. Maybe it's gratitude you never expressed. Maybe it's pain you never allowed yourself to feel. They appear in your thoughts not to haunt you, but to help you release the emotional weight attached to them. Thinking of them is your mind's way of saying, "Let's make peace with this now." 11. You love deeply. That's why they stay. Some people never leave our thoughts because we never truly stopped loving them. Not in the romantic sense, but in the soul sense. The part of love that never fades. When someone touches your emotional core, you carry pieces of them everywhere you go. It's not obsession, it's remembrance. It's the way your heart honors what once made it beat faster. Even if you move on, a quiet part of you will always care. And that's not weakness, that's humanity. 12. Sometimes it's mutual. There's also a silent truth in psychology. When two people share deep emotional attunement, their thought patterns can align. If they're also thinking about you, you might feel it, even without communication. The warmth, the sudden wave of emotion, the random memories appearing out of nowhere. Sometimes it's not just you remembering them, it's their memory brushing against yours. Science may not explain this fully, but the heart knows when it's being remembered. 13. The attachment system. Still active. According to attachment psychology, our mind forms strong emotional bonds through oxytocin, the bonding hormone. When communication breaks, that attachment system doesn't just turn off. It keeps searching for that emotional connection, even through imagination, dreams, or daily thoughts. That's why even when life moves on, a part of your emotional system keeps reaching for them, until time, healing, and acceptance slowly calm it down. 14. The nostalgia loop. Sometimes thinking about them isn't about them anymore. It's about the version of yourself that existed with them. You think about them because they remind you of a time when you felt alive, hopeful, or deeply connected. That's the nostalgia, the emotional time travel of love. It's your heart saying, "I miss who I was when I was loved that way." 15. The truth behind constant thoughts. When someone stays in your mind without any communication, it doesn't always mean they're your destiny. Sometimes it means they were your lesson. They came to awaken emotions you didn't know you could feel. They taught you love, vulnerability, maybe even heartbreak. They helped you meet yourself more deeply. That's why your mind keeps them, because they shaped a part of who you are. Even silence can be sacred when it leaves behind growth. What it really means when someone is always in your mind without communication, it means they become a part of your emotional language. They live in the spaces between your thoughts, not as a burden, but as a reminder of how deeply you can feel. It doesn't always mean they're meant to return, but it always means they mattered, because real connections never disappear completely. They simply transform from presence to memory, from sound to silence, from love to wisdom. And maybe, just maybe, they still think of you too, somewhere in the quiet corners of their mind. Because once two hearts have truly connected, distance can silence words, but it can never silence remembrance.